Hope everybody out there is having a fantastic weekend. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and on the Niners Report Rundown, going to take your questions from our viewers and subscribers going into a huge offseason for San Francisco. And let's start off with the bang here from Dave Zobel. Do you think the Niners can swing a deal for Myles Garrett? I think they can if they want to, but it all comes down to what San Francisco is willing to give up. I think the Cleveland Browns asking price for the 2023 Defensive Player of the Year, a multi-time first-team All-Pro, one of the best pass rushers of this generation, a player who's going to be a member of the All-Decade team once that is determined after the end of this decade, is going to be 2 first-round picks. And are the Niners willing to part ways with 2 first-round picks? Now, maybe that's the starting asking point and asking price for Cleveland, 2 firsts. Maybe you can bump that down to a first and a second. And I know some people will balk at that chase. The Niners have to get younger. They can't give up a couple of first-round picks. But the player that you're going to take at number 11, is he going to be better than Myles Garrett? No. And is he going to be better than Myles Garrett, even best case scenario, in the long run? I don't think so. Myles Garrett, I still think, has plenty of gas left in the tank. He's coming off back-to-back 14-sack seasons. 29 years old. He will be looking for a contract extension. But think about how Philadelphia embarrassed Kansas City. Great defensive line play. Sacked Patrick Mahomes 6 times, most of his career. Had 25 pressures without blitzing. You get better at defensive tackle. You trade for Myles Garrett. You have Nick Bosa. That's the recipe for being able to stop some of the top upper echelon quarterbacks in the NFL. So I think the Niners can. It just comes down to what they're willing to offer and will they meet the Browns' asking price, which is going to be very high because Myles Garrett is a once-in-a-generation type of player. Ken Dowsland, Debo played like crap, but you know there are some teams that are going to want him. What are the top destinations for Debo? Yeah, so a few teams come to mind, and earlier this week I talked about a few of those teams. New England Patriots want to get another weapon around Drake May. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers make sense. They want a number 2 next to George Pickens. New York Giants want a number 2 alongside Malik Neighbors. I think a team like the Las Vegas Raiders could make sense because even though they don't have a quarterback, they don't have a lot of offensive weapons outside of Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. I think a team like the Buffalo Bills could be looking at a player like Debo to get Josh Allen some more help. His physical play also translates in a cold weather climate. The Washington Commanders, they could use another weapon for Jaden Daniels while he's on his rookie contract. You put Debo next to Terry McLaurin, or a team like the Houston Texans. You pair Debo up with Nico Collins, Tank Dell, injured, Stephon Diggs coming off a torn ACL, CJ Stroud still on his rookie contract as well. Those are the teams that come to mind for Debo. But what are you going to get back for him? I think best case scenario, maybe a 3rd, most likely a 4th. Fernando Caceres, thanks for the question. What if we can trade Debo to the Steelers and get TJ Watt, plus a couple of picks, obviously? Well, you're not going to get a couple of picks for Debo while trading him to Pittsburgh for TJ Watt. What you would have to do if you wanted to do that, trade Debo and picks for TJ Watt. And if that's what you meant, then I can see where you're coming from there. Steelers aren't doing that, though. TJ Watt is a top 5 pass rusher in the game. And Debo, his value has really plummeted. He's coming off a career worst season in which the tackle-breaking numbers weren't there. The separation was not there. The touchdown, yards per catch, targets, receiving yards, all down. Some of the worst numbers of his career. If you were to have traded Debo this offseason, and he's coming off the 2021 season when he was an All-Pro, you could have gotten a first-rounder for him. Not now, unfortunately, especially for a player like TJ Watt. That'd be a lopsided trade. Should the Niners get rid of Debo? Y for yes, K for keep. That is today's poll question. So embrace debate and debate it down in the comment section right now. We're going to take more of your questions on the other side, but first, do you have a question about Zbiotics? If that's the case, then I got you. Do you want 15% off at zbiotics.com/chatsports? Cool, we got you too. Use that link or scan that QR code. What is Zbiotics? It is a product that they have to offer pre-alcohol, probiotic, which is what I want to talk about. And it's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists who tackle rough mornings after drinking. And when you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember, to drink this probiotic before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. First time I tried it was before a watch party a couple of years ago, and as instructed, drank a bottle before any alcohol. I was amazed at how good I felt the next day. Every time I have pre-alcohol before drinking, it makes such a difference the day after. Even after drinks the night before, I know that I'll be able to get after it and continue my running streak and work out. I just tried pre-alcohol back that couple of years ago, and it's just an incredible product. So go to zbiotics.com/chatsports, scan the QR code on your screen right now, get 15% off your order when you use the code chatsports at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using our code so that you can stay prepared no matter the time or the occasion. Zbiotics backed with the 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Zbiotics.com/chatsports. Use the code chatsports. Chris Teal, if the Niners lose Dre Greenlaw, would you bring in Khalil Mack? It's a very interesting name right there. Khalil Mack if you lose Dre Greenlaw. Now, different positions, right? Khalil Mack is an outside linebacker pass rusher. Dre Greenlaw is an off-ball coverage linebacker who isn't used as a stand-up edge rusher like Khalil Mack is. I think the conversation is more so if you want to bring in a defensive end and pass rusher, do you just sign Khalil Mack? I don't think it has anything to do with Dre Greenlaw because it's a totally different position. Dre Greenlaw is one of the top off-ball coverage linebackers in the NFL, and Khalil Mack throughout his career, and he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer, has been one of the top pass rushing outside linebackers / defensive ends in the NFL. I think Mack could be looked at as a player who the Niners could sign for cheap if he's willing to take a cheap deal. But I think he's going to go somewhere like Washington, where they can pay him, where they have a bigger need, where he's going to get a lot of playing time and cash. With Niners, he gets the playing time, not as much money. So we'll see what happens with Dre Greenlaw. I'd like to see the Niners bring him back, but I think it's to a point now where another team might be willing to pay him. And according to reports, it's looking as though Dre Greenlaw might not return. Charlie Katzeman. What about Tyler Warren at number 11? He could be the next Kyle Juszczyk at fullback and then the next Kittle at tight end. I'm a Penn State grad and fan. I think this is the best value for two positions. Your thoughts, Chase? Charlie, awesome stuff. My previous job, I covered the Penn State football program, and I grew up in Pennsylvania. So I grew up on Joe Paterno football in the late 90s and early 2000s, and so I always keep close tabs on Penn State. And during the regular season, I put this out on Twitter, and people thought I was insane at the time, that Tyler Warren would be a pretty intriguing option for San Francisco at number 11. It certainly wouldn't fulfill a need, especially when George Kittle comes out and says, yeah, my agent and the Niners were talking about a contract extension. But if the Niners went best player available, I think Tyler Warren, when the 11th overall pick comes around, is going to be the best player available. Now, I more so talked about Tyler Warren under the premise of if the Niners let Kittle play out the final year of his contract and then they let him go after 2025, what a great replacement right here. He has the size of Gronk, the tackle breaking and yak ability of George Kittle, wonderful versatility. He could play H-back, fullback. He lined up under center. He lined up wildcat quarterback. He's lined up inside. He's lined up outside. He is a very, very special player. And if the Niners want to get more physical and add another weapon for Brock Purdy, cost-controlled asset right here, I'm not ruling it out that they take Tyler Warren at number 11 if they want to go more 12 personnel and they want to include some jumbo packages with him and Kittle on the field at the same time. I just think they're not going to go that route because they have bigger positions of importance. Chubalor. How can we fix the offensive line and defensive line? Sign Drew Dalman, the center from the Falcons. You could draft an offensive tackle at number 11, like Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell or Armand Membu. If you go defensive and defensive tackle at number 11, that's how you can address the defensive line. This is a pretty deep defensive tackle class. So you might be able to get a really good defensive tackle in the second round. And if you go defensive tackle second round, I think you go offensive tackle first round, but edge rusher is also a need. So it's going to have to be a mixing and matching, Chua, of what the Niners do in free agency and in the draft. But I would sign center Drew Dalman, figure out left guard, right tackle in the draft, and then defensive tackle, defensive end, you either do that in the draft and or free agency. Charlie, I feel it would be best to trade the 11th pick and get more draft compensation. Your thoughts? Yeah, I've floated this possibility too, where if you don't love how the board falls, or you don't like the players that you could get at number 11, or you think that you could get a player at number 11 midway through the first, do you trade back and then you get another pick late first, early second, and then you'll have 3 picks potentially inside the top 45. And then you're able to address all of the positions that you need. Offensive line and defensive line. Boom. That's how you rebuild your football club the first 2 days of the draft very quickly. And so it really depends on how the board falls and how the Niners see the board falling and how they see it fit as far as what players are available. But it's definitely something that I would think about. Chris Steele, if the Niners don't get Myles Garrett, how about Trey Hendrickson, who would be a good fit with Bosa? Trey Hendrickson had 17 sacks last year. Number 1 in the NFL. He's 30, Garrett's 29. Over the last couple of years, Trey Hendrickson's been right up there with Garrett as far as sack totals go. And even though he had more sacks than Garrett in 2024, I don't think that he's going to cost as much on a contract extension or cost as much to trade for. And so I think that would be a really good option too. Should the Niners trade for a pass rusher this offseason? We'll fittingly end on that. What say you?